The story begins inside a prestigious high school where tension crackles in the air. A white principal humiliates a black honor student in front of his classmates, making it clear he doesn't want him there. But the student's calm dignity and one powerful statement hint at a much bigger twist to come. "We don't want people like you in this school." The words cut through the fluorescent-lit classroom like a whip. The voice belonged to Principal Richard Hayes, a tall man in his 50s with slicked-back silver hair, polished shoes, and the kind of smug arrogance that dripped from every movement he made. He stood in the doorway, arms folded, staring at 17-year-old Marcus Daniels, as though the boy were an intruder instead of one of the school's brightest students. The room fell into suffocating silence. Rows of students froze, wide eyes, bouncing between the principal and Marcus. Some pressed their lips together, afraid to breathe. Others, too accustomed to this brand of cruelty, lowered their eyes and pretended not to notice. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering like nervous witnesses. Marcus sat at his desk, posture straight, his hands calmly resting on a notebook filled with diagrams for the science fair project he had been working on for months. He was a scholarship student, the only black student in his AP science class, and his project had already won district recognition. Yet here he was, being publicly targeted by the highest authority in the school. Principal Hayes stepped further into the room, his shoes clicking against the tile like a gavel hitting wood. "You think you can win awards under this roof?" His lip curled. "This isn't your kind of place. You don't fit. You never did." A nervous cough came from the back of the room. Someone shifted uncomfortably. A girl whispered, "That's not fair." But her voice was drowned out by the principal's booming arrogance. Marcus's chest rose and fell slowly. His calmness was not weakness, it was steel. He lifted his gaze from his notebook and met the principal's eyes. The quiet defiance in that look carried more weight than a shouted protest ever could. "You've embarrassed this school enough," Hayes continued. "Packing up and leaving before you drag us down further is the smart thing to do." The students were stunned. One boy dropped his pencil. The clatter echoed like a gunshot. A symbolic moment followed. Hayes snatched Marcus's project notebook from his desk, flipped through the pages, and then ripped out one carefully drawn diagram. The paper tore loudly, jagged edges fluttering to the floor. Gasps rippled through the classroom. Marcus inhaled sharply but remained composed. He reached down, picked up the torn sheet, and smoothed it against the desk with steady fingers. His voice, when it finally came, was soft but unyielding. Respectfully, "Sir," Marcus said, looking Hayes straight in the eye, "you don't decide where I belong." The class collectively held its breath. Even Hayes faltered, his eyes narrowing. At the boy's audacity, Marcus slipped the torn diagram back into his notebook, a symbolic act of defiance, proof that no matter how much they tried to destroy his work, his spirit remained unbroken. The tension thickened. Hayes's jaw clenched, but before he could lash out again, the bell rang. The shrill sound jolted everyone, breaking the spell of silence. Students scrambled to gather their belongings, whispering furiously to one another as they rushed out. Marcus stood slowly, gathering his books, his expression unreadable. Yet the calm fire in his eyes promised that this wasn't the end. Something bigger was coming, something the arrogant principal couldn't begin to imagine, because Marcus knew something. Hayes didn't single quotes T. And when the truth finally came out, the walls of this school would shake. The oak-paneled walls of Principal Hayes's office were meant to impress diplomas framed in gold, a heavy desk polished until it gleamed, and shelves lined with trophies that celebrated the school's victories. But for Marcus, seated stiffly in the leather chair across from the desk, the room felt like a courtroom, and Hayes was both judge and executioner. Hayes didn't waste time. He slid a crisp white envelope across the desk, his thin smile razor-sharp. "This," he said, tapping the envelope with a manicured finger, "is your official notice of expulsion, effective immediately." Marcus didn't reach for it. His eyes scanned Hayes's face instead, memorizing every flicker of satisfaction in the man's expression. Hayes thrived on moments like this, the public stripping of dignity. "You've disrupted this institution long enough," Hayes continued, his voice oily with condescension. "Our standards require excellence." And while you may think your little science fair wins amount to something, they don't erase the fact that you simply don't belong in this environment. Marcus's jaw tightened. Sir, I've maintained a 4.0 GPA since freshman year. My project was recommended for state recognition. I've never once had a disciplinary issue. Hayes leaned back, folding his arms. Grades are numbers. Behavior is character, and character is what you lack. The words were venom wrapped in silk. Hayes knew they weren't true, but the beauty of institutional power was that truth didn't matter, authority did. From the corner of the room, Assistant Principal Ellen Grant shifted uncomfortably. She had been called to witness the meeting, but her folded hands and furrowed brow betrayed unease. Her eyes flicked toward Marcus briefly, as though to offer silent apology, then darted away. Marcus finally picked up the envelope. His hands didn't shake. He slid a finger under the flap, tore it open, and read the letter. The words were as cold as Hayes's smile. Expelled for repeated acts of insubordination and failure to meet the behavioral expectations of the institution. A blatant lie. Marcus folded the paper neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and tucked it into his backpack. Thank you for the notice, he said evenly, standing. Hayes arched a brow. That's it? No tears? No begging? Marcus met his eyes with quiet steel. Begging isn't my style. Hayes's smirk faltered for the briefest moment before returning. You'll regret this, Daniels. When you walk out of here, you'll realize the world isn't waiting for you with open arms. People like you, Ellen coughed suddenly, cutting him off. Hayes glanced at her sharply, but she lowered her gaze. Marcus caught the flicker of resistance in her expression before it vanished. People like me, Marcus said slowly, have been proving people like you wrong for generations. The silence after his words was heavy, electric. Even Hayes seemed momentarily stripped of his rehearsed authority. Marcus slung his backpack over his shoulder. As he reached for the door, Hayes snapped, Don't bother coming back tomorrow. Security will make sure of it. Marcus paused at the doorway, his hand on the brass handle. He didn't look back. His voice, calm and steady, carried through the office. You'll see me again, sir, but not the way you expect. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Hayes and Ellen in silence. Hayes exhaled harshly, muttering under his breath. Ellen remained seated, her fingers twisting together, eyes on the floor. For the first time, a crack appeared in the perfect armor of Principal Richard Hayes, and somewhere down the hall, Marcus walked with his head high, each step echoing like a drumbeat of defiance. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The hallway buzzed with voices as Marcus stepped out of the principal's office, the envelope heavy in his backpack. Word had already spread like wildfire. Students leaned against lockers, whispering in clusters, there. Eyes darting toward him before quickly looking away. Did you hear? They kicked him out? Why? He was top of the class. They said he was disrespectful. Figures. The comments floated through the air like gnats, annoying, constant. Impossible to swat away. Marcus kept his stride even, his chin lifted. Every step was a test of his resolve. Teachers passed him, some offering curt nods, others deliberately avoiding eye contact. Their silence spoke louder than words. They knew, but they wouldn't challenge Hayes, not for him. Not for anyone who looked like him. At the main doors, Marcus pushed the heavy metal bar. The door creaked open, and sunlight hit him like a spotlight. The chill of early autumn swept across his face. Outside, the campus was alive with students heading to buses and cars. Laughter rang out, sneakers slapped against pavement, but to Marcus, the noise felt distant, muffled, like a world he was already locked out of. A group of basketball players paused mid-conversation as he walked by. One of them, Jamal, his closest friend, called out, "Yo, Marcus." "Wait up," Marcus hesitated, but shook his head. "Not today." Jamal's face fell, confusion mixing with worry. He wanted to push, but Marcus's expression said everything. This wasn't the time. Marcus cut across the football field instead, following the main sidewalk. His shoes sank into the damp grass. Each step away from the school felt like a thread snapping loose, disconnecting him from everything he had worked so hard to be part of. His thoughts churned. He replayed Hayes's words over and over, the sting sharper each time. People like you don't belong here. It wasn't just about him. It was about every student who would come after him, who would face the same smirk, the same bias, the same closed doors. That realization burned hotter than anger. It forged determination. He reached the edge of campus, where the road dipped into the neighborhood. Houses lined the street-neat lawns, trimmed hedges, cars parked in driveways. Parents who drove expensive cars and paid for private tutors lived here. Marcus lived 3 blocks over, where cracked sidewalks and peeling paint told a different story. He shoved his hands into his pockets, head down against the wind. The rhythm of his footsteps was steady, deliberate. For the first time, his mind was quiet, and in that silence, clarity emerged. Expulsion wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something bigger. Halfway home, he stopped at a small park. The swing set creaked as children played. He sat on a bench, unzipped his backpack, and pulled out the torn diagram Hayes had ripped. The jagged edges mocked him, yet the drawing itself, the careful lines, the vision of possibility remained intact. Marcus smoothed the paper against his knee, staring at it until his eyes blurred. A voice whispered inside him, "They can tear the paper, but not the idea." His phone buzzed. A text from his mother lit up the screen. "Heard something happened at school. Come straight home." Marcus typed back, "On my way." He slipped the diagram back into his notebook, zipped his bag, and stood. The children's laughter behind him was a reminder innocence existed, but so did injustice. The world had both, and he was caught in between. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the pavement as Marcus continued walking. His reflection stretched out before him, tall and unbroken, as though the universe itself were reminding him, "Stand tall." By the time his house came into view, his decision was made. He wasn't going to let Hayes's arrogance write his story. No. The pen was in his hand now, and he would make sure the world knew it. The screen door screeched as Marcus stepped into the small, 2-bedroom house he shared with his mother. A familiar scent of lavender and fried onions hung in the air, but tonight it carried no comfort. "Marcus?" His mother's voice called from the kitchen. "That you?" He dropped his backpack onto the couch with a heavy thud. "Yeah." "Mom?" When she appeared in the doorway, apron dusted with flour, her smile faltered. One look at his face and she knew. The color drained from her cheeks. "Baby, what happened?" Marcus pulled the white envelope from his bag and placed it in her hands. His mother, Denise Daniels, stood frozen as she unfolded the paper. Her eyes scanned the typed words, and with each line, her grip tightened until the letter shook. "Expelled?" She whispered, disbelief lacing every syllable. "For what?" "For what?" Marcus's shoulders sagged. "For being me, Mom. That's all it ever was." The silence that followed was thick, charged with emotion. Denise pressed a trembling hand to her forehead, pacing the narrow living room. "This doesn't make sense. You've never been in trouble a day in your life. You've done everything right. All those nights studying, all those projects." Her voice cracked, but anger quickly replaced sorrow. "And that man thinks he can throw it all away with one piece of paper?" Marcus sat on the couch, watching her storm back and forth. He'd seen this fire before, the same fire that had carried her through years of single parenthood. Double shifts, and every closed door slammed in her face. "Mom, it's okay." "No, it's not okay." She cut him off, her voice sharp. She turned to him, eyes blazing. "They are not going to do this to you. They are not going to erase everything you've worked for because of their prejudice. Not while I'm breathing." Marcus swallowed hard. What if they don't listen? What if it doesn't matter? Denise crouched in front of him, her hands gripping his knees. "Listen to me. You are not some statistic they can sweep aside. You are brilliant, Marcus. You are worthy, and you are mine. And I will fight for you with everything I have." Tears welled in his eyes, but he blinked them back. Her words anchored him, the weight of her conviction pulling him out of the storm of doubt. She stood, snatching her phone from the counter. "First, I'm calling the school board. Then, I'll call the district office. If they won't listen, I'll take it to the media." She paced again, fingers flying across the screen. Marcus hesitated. "Mom, won't that just make things worse? Hayes has power. He'll spin the story." Denise stopped mid-step, Her eyes softened as she looked at him. Marcus, the truth doesn't need spinning. The truth stands on its own, and I promise you so will we. The room fell into a fragile quiet. Outside, the street lights flickered on, casting pale light through the window blinds. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. Marcus finally spoke. I told him he doesn't decide where I belong. Denise's lips curved into the faintest smile. That's my boy. They sat together at the small kitchen table, the expulsion letter lying between them like an enemy they both vowed to defeat. Denise reached across, taking his hand in hers. Her grip was strong, unshakable. Tomorrow, she said firmly, we fight. Marcus nodded. For the first time since leaving school, hope flickered in his chest. What he didn't know was that tomorrow's battle would set off a chain of events no one could have predicted, and somewhere far beyond their modest home, forces were already moving, forces that would bring their struggle into the brightest spotlight imaginable. The school board meeting was held in a gleaming conference room at the district office. Rows of chairs faced a long oak table where 5 board members sat, their expressions polished and distant. The walls were lined with framed photos of smiling students in caps and gowns, as if the institution's success could mask its failures. Denise Daniels walked in like a storm, Marcus at her side. Her heels clicked sharply against the tile, announcing her presence before she spoke a single word. Marcus carried his backpack, the expulsion notice tucked inside, but his eyes never left his mother. Name and issue? The secretary asked, board, clipboard in hand. Denise Daniels, she replied, voice crisp, controlled. My son was expelled without cause, and I want it addressed now. The secretary blinked, clearly not used to such directness, then waved them toward the front row of chairs. When their case was called, Denise stood. She didn't shuffle papers, didn't hesitate. She walked straight to the podium, her back straight, her eyes locked on the 5 board members who stared down at her like judges in black robes. My son, Marcus Daniels, she began, was expelled yesterday from Westwood High by Principal Hayes. The notice says repeated acts of insubordination. I demand proof of these so-called acts. Because there is none. A murmur rippled through the room. Marcus's heart pounded, but he sat tall, absorbing her strength. Board Chairwoman Caldwell adjusted her glasses. Mrs. Daniels, disciplinary actions are within the purview of school administration. The board generally does not interfere in day-to-day matters. Denise's laugh was sharp, humorless. Day-to-day matters? You call stripping a student of his education a day-to-day matter? My son has a perfect GPA, district-level awards, and a spotless record. But suddenly, he's insubordinate? Tell me, what behavior changed other than the fact that he's outshining your favorite students? The board members shifted uncomfortably. Caldwell cleared her throat. Please keep your tone respectful. Denise leaned forward, gripping the podium. Respect is earned, not demanded. My son showed your institution respect for years through his work, his discipline, his achievements. And this is how you repay him? By tearing him down because he doesn't fit your picture of who deserves to succeed. Gasps fluttered through the audience. Other parents, teachers, and even a few students had gathered in the back. Whispers spread. Like wildfire. Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. Pride, fear, hope, all tangled together. A male board member coughed. Mrs. Daniels, perhaps we can arrange a meeting with Principal Hayes to clarify the circumstances. Clarify? Denise snapped. The only thing that needs clarification is how you allowed a man like Hayes to run a school at all. The room fell silent. Denise's words landed like stones against glass, cracking the polished facade of authority. Marcus's eyes flicked toward the back of the room. He saw Assistant Principal Ellen Grant, half hidden, standing near the door. Their eyes met. She gave the faintest nod, subtle but deliberate, as if to say, I saw. I know the truth. Caldwell raised a hand, her voice tight. We will review the phase in face. We will review the matter internally and provide you with an update. Denise slammed her palm against the podium. Not good enough. My son will not be a casualty of your silence. You will hear his story. And if you don't believe me, the entire city will. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Caldwell scribbled something on her notepad, trying to regain control. "Mrs. Daniels, please." "No," Denise cut in. "The days of polite silence are over." She turned on her heel, her presence filling the room even as she walked away. Marcus rose and followed her, his chest tight with a mix of fear and admiration. As the doors closed behind them, the buzz of voices erupted. Reporters who had been covering a different issue scribbled furiously. Parents whispered. Students recorded snippets on their phones. In the car outside, Marcus buckled his seatbelt slowly. "Mom, that was necessary," she finished. Starting the engine, her eyes were fierce, unwavering. "This isn't just about you, Marcus. It's about every child they think they can silence, and I'll be damned if I let them." Marcus leaned back, staring out the window as the district building faded into the distance. Something inside him shifted. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was part of a fight much larger than himself. The next morning, Marcus woke to the buzz of his phone. Notifications stacked one after another. Texts from friends, tags on social media, unread messages from numbers he didn't recognize. He rubbed his eyes and opened one at random. "Saw your mom last night. She's a legend." Another read. "Bro, the whole school is talking. People saying Hayes is done for." But then came others. "Should have kept your head down. You're making our school look bad." The mix of praise and hostility felt like standing in a storm. Some winds lifted him. Others tried to knock him down. From the kitchen, the smell of coffee drifted in. He walked out to find Denise already dressed, hair pulled back, a notebook open on the table. She had always been a fighter, but now she looked like a general preparing for war. "Morning, baby," she said, glancing up. "Eat something. We've got reporters coming at noon." Marcus froze mid-step. Reporters? Word got out from the board meeting. Parents talked, students posted, journalists picked it up. She tapped her notebook. "This is bigger than Hayes now. They want interviews," Marcus said slowly. "Mom, I didn't ask for all this." Denise's eyes softened. "I know. But injustice doesn't wait for permission. Sometimes the fight chooses you." By noon, their small living room was filled with the hum of cameras and microphones. A local news crew had set up, wires snaking across the floor. Marcus sat stiffly on the couch while Denise spoke confidently to the reporter. "My son has done nothing wrong," she declared, her voice steady. "He was expelled because of bias, not behavior. We will not accept silence. We will not accept lies." The reporter turned to Marcus. "And how do you feel about being expelled?" All eyes fell on him. The camera's red light glowed like a target. His palms were damp, but he forced himself to meet the reporter's gaze. "I feel like I've been told I don't belong," he said, his voice quiet but clear. "But I also know that's not true. I've worked too hard to let someone else define me. This isn't just about me, it's about anyone who's ever been told they're less than they are." The room stilled. The reporter's pen froze mid-note. Even the cameraman leaned in slightly, as if Marcus's words carried a gravity no microphone could capture. When the crew finally left, Marcus collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Denise rubbed his shoulder. "You were perfect," she whispered, "but..." Not everyone saw it that way. By evening, the story had spread online. A headline blared across the local news site. "Student claims racist expulsion at Westwood High." The article sparked hundreds of comments. Supporters praised Marcus's courage. Critics accused him of playing the race card. Some demanded Hayes resign. Others defended him fiercely. Scrolling through, Marcus felt his stomach knot. Each cruel comment stung like a dart, but then he saw posts from students sharing their own experiences, stories of favoritism, discrimination, silenced voices. It wasn't just him. He wasn't alone. That night, the phone rang constantly. Community leaders, church members, even an attorney offering free representation. The house buzzed with energy, but Marcus sat quietly at the kitchen table, sketching. In his notebook, his pencil traced lines across the page. A new design, an invention that had nothing to do with the chaos around him. Denise watched him from the counter. "What are you working on?" "Just trying to remember who I am outside all this," she smiled softly. Don't ever lose that, Marcus. You're more than their fight. You're you. He nodded, though his chest was heavy. For every word of support, there was another of hate. For every door that opened, another slammed shut. As he turned off his phone and headed to bed, a thought settled deep inside him. This wasn't about a single student versus a single principal anymore. It was about truth against power. And the world had just started watching. 2 days after the first news reports aired, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with his mother, the morning sunlight spilling through the blinds. The TV hummed in the background, tuned to the local news. Denise sipped her coffee, her eyes fixed on the screen. And in other news, the anchor said brightly, Governor Jonathan Reed is set to visit Westwood High School this Friday to celebrate the district's academic achievements. The governor's office has confirmed he will tour classrooms, meet with students, and deliver a short address. The mug in Denise's hand froze mid-air. Marcus looked up from his cereal. Westwood? He repeated. Denise set the mug down slowly. They just expelled you from that school, and now the governor's coming for a photo op? The words hung heavy in the air. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Marcus's phone buzzed. A message from Jamal lit up the screen. Yo, the governor's coming here. Hayes is losing his mind cleaning up the place. Marcus read it twice, then glanced at his mother. Her eyes narrowed, already calculating. This changes everything, she murmured. Meanwhile, in his spacious office at Westwood High, Principal Hayes was indeed losing his composure. He barked orders at staff, his face flushed. I want every wall spotless, every classroom perfect. I don't care if you repaint the lockers overnight. This school will look flawless when the governor steps through those doors. Teachers nodded nervously. Custodians rushed out with mops and paint cans. Hayes slammed his fist onto his desk when they left. The Daniels situation gnawed at him like a thorn. He knew whispers were spreading, that reporters were circling, but with the governor's visit looming, he couldn't afford a blemish. No distractions, he muttered. Not one. Back in the Daniels home, Marcus paced the living room. Mom, do you think he'll hear about us? Denise's lips pressed into a thin line. If he doesn't, we'll make sure he does. Marcus frowned. But what if it backfires? Hayes will try to bury us deeper. Denise stepped closer, her voice firm. Marcus, this is bigger than Hayes. Governors don't just show up to schools every day. This is our chance. Marcus hesitated. Deep down, he carried a mix of hope and dread. Hope that the governor might actually listen. Dread that his story would be dismissed yet again. That evening, the community buzzed with talk of the visit. Churches, barbershops, corner stores everywhere, people debated. Some said it was just politics, a staged performance. Others whispered it might finally expose the truth. At the basketball courts, Jamal jogged up to Marcus. Man, this is it. If the governor hears what Hayes did, it's over for him. Marcus shook his head. You think a governor cares about one student? You're not just one student anymore, Jamal countered. You're the kid everyone's talking about. Marcus looked away, unsure how to carry the weight of those words. The night before the visit, Denise laid a pressed shirt on Marcus's bed. Wear this tomorrow, she said. He looked at it, then at her. Mom, I'm not even allowed in the school right now. Her gaze was steady. Then let's see what happens when the governor finds out why. Marcus swallowed hard. He lay awake long after she left the room, staring at the ceiling. His mind replayed Hayes's sneer, the sound of paper ripping, the humiliation in front of his classmates. But beneath it all, one thought pulsed. This could be the moment everything changes. As the clock ticked past midnight, Marcus finally closed his eyes. The hum of the city outside felt like a countdown. Tomorrow, the governor of the state would walk into the halls of Westwood High. And nothing would ever be the same again. The morning sun broke across the gleaming brick walls of Westwood High, catching on freshly polished windows and newly scrubbed sidewalks. Banners hung at the entrance, bold letters declaring, Welcome Governor Reed. Inside, the halls smelled of lemon cleaner and fresh paint. Teachers wore forced smiles, herding students into neat rows. Custodians, exhausted from their all-night labor, stood in corners wiping the same spotless surfaces again and again. Principal Hayes adjusted his tie in the reflective glass of a trophy case. He could feel sweat prickling his temples, though the air conditioning hummed steadily. "This is it," he whispered to himself. "Keep it perfect. Keep it controlled." He stepped into the main lobby, where a small group of local reporters were already setting up cameras. His stomach knotted. He pasted on a smile. Outside, a small crowd of parents, community members, and curious onlookers gathered by the gates. Among them stood Marcus and his mother, Denise. Marcus tugged at his collar. The pressed shirt she had laid out the night before stiff against his skin. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. Denise's eyes remained fixed on the school. "Doors. This isn't about being sure. This is about being seen." The low hum of engines cut through the murmurs of the crowd. Black SUVs rolled into view, their windows tinted, flags fluttering from the front. A hush fell. The convoy pulled to a smooth stop before the school entrance. Security agents stepped out first, scanning the area with sharp eyes. Then the rear. Door opened, and Governor Jonathan Reed emerged, tall, composed, his suit impeccable. The crowd erupted into polite applause. Cameras clicked furiously. Hayes stepped forward, his smile broad and practiced. "Governor Reed, what an honor to welcome you to Westwood High." The governor shook his hand firmly, his expression neutral, almost unreadable. "Thank you, Principal Hayes. I'm looking forward to seeing what this school has to offer." Hayes gestured with exaggerated warmth. "Of course, sir. We've prepared a tour of our finest classrooms and programs." As they moved toward the entrance, Marcus's heart pounded. He felt Denise's hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "Wait for the right moment," she whispered. Inside, the governor walked through pristine halls lined with student art and posters about diversity hastily taped to the walls the night before. Teachers stood like soldiers at attention, their voices overly bright as they introduced their classes. Hayes narrated at every step. "As you can see, Governor Westwood takes pride in academic excellence and discipline. Our students are among the best in the state." The governor nodded politely, though his eyes scanned more than Hayes realized. He noticed nervous glances between teachers, the faint tension in the air, the way a few students avoided looking directly at the principal. Hayes continued, eager to drown the silence. "We believe in fairness and opportunity in preparing our students for the future." Outside, Marcus pressed closer to the doors, straining to see through the glass. His stomach twisted with urgency. Every second that passed felt like sand. Slipping away. What if he leaves without hearing us? Marcus whispered. Denise met his eyes. "Then you make sure he hears you before he does." Back inside, the governor paused at a science display table set up in the hall, neatly arranged models of solar systems and volcanoes. His gaze lingered on an empty spot in the lineup, where a small placard still bore the name, Marcus Daniels. Hayes. Noticed too late. He moved quickly, sliding a model closer to cover the space. "Ah, just a minor oversight," he said with a laugh too thin to sound natural. "One project didn't quite make it." The governor's brow furrowed slightly, but he said nothing. The tour continued into the auditorium, where students sat neatly in rows, whispering with excitement. Reporters set up at the back, their cameras aimed at the stage where the governor was scheduled to speak. Hayes climbed the steps first, spreading his arms wide. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our esteemed guest, Governor Jonathan Reed." The applause was loud, almost rehearsed. The governor stepped up, shaking Hayes's hand once more before approaching the podium. Marcus and Denise slipped quietly into the side entrance of the auditorium, unnoticed in the commotion. Marcus's pulse thudded in his ears as he saw the governor standing just feet away. Hayes leaned in, whispering urgently to the governor before stepping aside. But his words were drowned out by a sudden hush, not of fear, but of expectation. All eyes turned as Marcus, standing tall at the back of the room, took his first step forward. The moment had come. The governor's calm baritone filled the auditorium. Education is the cornerstone of opportunity. Schools like Westwood are meant to uplift every child, regardless of their background. Polite applause followed, but Marcus's chest burned. He could hear Hayes's words echoing in his head. "You don't belong here." The memory of his ripped project, the humiliation in front of classmates, and the hollow silence afterward pressed on him like a weight. His mother's hand brushed his back gently, but her whisper was firm. Now, Marcus. He rose to his feet. His voice cracked, but it carried. That's not true for everyone. The auditorium fell instantly silent. Hundreds of eyes swung toward him. Cameras tilted, reporters raising their lenses. Hayes stiffened on stage, color draining from his face. The governor turned his head slightly. I'm sorry, son. Did you say something? Marcus stepped forward, every eye on him. His knees trembled, but his voice grew stronger. Yes, I was a student here until last week, when Principal Hayes expelled me for no reason but the color of my skin. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Students leaned forward, whispering. Parents exchanged shocked glances. The reporters' cameras whirred faster. Hayes jumped in, his voice sharp. This is outrageous. Security. Stop. The governor's voice cut like steel. His gaze stayed fixed on Marcus. No one moves. Let the boy speak. Marcus swallowed hard, his throat dry. I spent months working on my science project. I won the regional fair, and this school was supposed to display my work here. Instead, Principal Hayes ripped it apart in front of everyone and told me I didn't belong. He handed me an expulsion. Notice in front of my entire class. Denise rose behind her son, her voice steady. And when I went to the school board, they ignored me. They said Hayes' decision was final. The governor's expression darkened. He slowly turned to Hayes. Is this true? Hayes' smile was brittle. Governor, with all due respect, this young man is twisting the story. He was disruptive. Marcus cut in, his voice ringing louder. Disruptive? My only disruption was daring to excel when you didn't expect me to. The students murmured, a wave of recognition in their faces. Jamal stood up from his seat. He's telling the truth. We all saw it. One by one, other students began nodding, some standing, voices overlapping. He ripped the project. He embarrassed him for no reason. We were all there. The tide turned swiftly, the room alive with restless energy. Hayes' hands twitched at his sides, his facade slipping. The governor raised a hand and silence fell again. He looked directly at Marcus. What's your name, son? Marcus Daniels. Something shifted in the governor's eyes. Recognition flickered. He leaned forward slightly, studying the boy's face as if piecing together a memory. Hayes spoke quickly, desperate. Governor, please, this is a distraction. I assure you, Westwood High is committed to diversity and the governor. Cut him off. Enough. The single word dropped like a stone. Hayes' mouth snapped shut. The governor turned back to Marcus. Thank you for your courage, Marcus. It takes strength to speak truth to power, especially when the odds are stacked against you. The applause that broke out was not polite this time. It was raw, real. Students clapping, parents rising to their feet, reporters leaning forward as if history itself was unfolding before them. Hayes stood frozen, sweat gathering on his forehead. He tried to smile, but his lips quivered. His kingdom of control was slipping through his fingers. The governor straightened, his voice carrying through the auditorium. I came here to celebrate the school's achievements. Instead, I've been shown its failures. That will not be ignored. The applause surged again, thunderous, while Hayes lowered his gaze, his face burning. Marcus looked around the room, his chest heaving. Realizing the impossible had happened, his voice had finally been heard, and the storm was only beginning. The auditorium buzzed, like a storm after Marcus's words. Students whispered in clusters, parents leaned forward, cameras flashed endlessly. At the center of it all, Principal Hayes stood rigid, his smile gone, his authority crumbling. Governor Reed's voice cut through the noise like a blade. This matter will not be brushed aside. Education should never be weaponized against a child because of the color of their skin. Hayes sputtered, his face pale. Governor, I assure you this is being exaggerated. The boy is mistaken, confused. Enough. The governor's hand slammed against the podium with a force that silenced even the reporters. His eyes bored into Hayes. You had the audacity to expel this child, to humiliate him, to destroy his work? Hayes' mouth opened, then closed. Words failed him. Marcus stood tall, his mother's hand steady on his shoulder. The governor's Gaze softened when it shifted toward them. Slowly, he stepped away from the podium and approached. "Marcus Daniels," he said, his voice steady but resonant. "Your name means more to me than you know." The room fell into a hushed anticipation. Denise's eyes widened. She seemed to understand before anyone else. The governor turned toward the crowd. "Years ago, I promised myself that if I ever rose to this office, I would protect children like Marcus. Why? Because once I was denied the same dignity he has been denied, and because his late grandfather, Reverend Samuel Daniels, was the man who mentored me when I had nothing." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads swiveled. Marcus's heart lurched. "Grandpa?" The governor nodded, his eyes glistening. "Your grandfather gave me the courage to believe I had a future. And now, Marcus, it is my duty to make sure you are given the same." The crowd erupted in applause, raw and thunderous. Students leapt to their feet, clapping, cheering. Reporters shouted questions, their microphones thrust forward. Hayes staggered back, his face twisted with disbelief. "Governor, please, you don't understand." The governor's gaze hardened once again. "What I understand is that you abused your position. You humiliated a child, violated the trust of your students, and disgraced this school. Effective immediately, Principal Hayes, you are suspended pending investigation." The words landed like a hammer. Hayes's knees nearly buckled. The auditorium roared with approval, students shouting, "Justice," and "Marcus." Security moved quietly toward Hayes, guiding him off the stage as he tried to protest, his words drowned in the noise. The mighty principal of Westwood High was now a fallen man, escorted like a criminal past the very students he once lorded over. Marcus felt dizzy as the governor returned to the podium. The room quieted once more. "This moment is about more than one student or one school," the governor said. "It is about dignity. It is about courage." Marcus Daniels spoke the truth when silence would have been easier. For that, he deserves not punishment, but honor. He gestured to Marcus. "Come here, son." Marcus hesitated, then stepped forward, his legs trembling as he joined the governor on stage. The crowd's cheers surged again. The governor placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "This young man represents the best of what our state has to offer. From this day forward, Marcus Daniels will not be remembered as the boy who was expelled, but as the boy who stood up, spoke truth, and changed the course of this school forever." Tears blurred Marcus's vision. His mother wept openly in the crowd, pride etched across her face. Jamal pumped his fist in the air, shouting his friend's name. The governor raised Marcus's hand high, as if declaring victory. Cameras captured every flash, every second, every tear. For Marcus, the humiliation that once crushed him was now replaced by something greater: dignity, justice, and hope. Later that night, the news spread across every channel. Clips of Marcus speaking, Hayes stumbling, and the governor's declaration replayed endlessly. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag stand with Marcus and hashtag justice at Westwood. Denise sat beside her son on the couch, tears still glistening on her cheeks. "Your grandfather would be proud," she whispered. Marcus leaned against her shoulder, exhausted but smiling. Maybe now things will be different. For the first time in weeks, he believed it. Outside, the night air was cool and calm. The world had shifted, and Marcus Daniels, once humiliated, once silenced, now stood as a symbol of quiet revolution.